Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. My name is Chloe Jury-Fogel. I'm on the video team at Jazz at Lincoln Center. In just a minute, we're going to join Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra trombonist Elliot Mason for a masterclass on how to become a better musician. After the lesson, Elliot will answer some questions from you all. At that time, I'll jump back in and explain how to ask a question. For now, we hope you all enjoy this JLCO masterclass. Go ahead, Elliot. You're up.
All right. How's everyone doing? I already see, I'm looking in here, we've got some great musicians in here, so we're definitely going to open this up and get everyone's perspective on this. So my name is Elliot Mason. I hope everyone is well and staying safe out there. Today we're talking about becoming a better musician. So this is something that we're all in together. And this is a road that we're all on together. So I figured, let's just talk about this, and maybe we can share some moments that maybe have helped us take that next step, or even get to another tier, or even reassess why we're doing this, why are we playing music. So some of the topics that we might be covering today, but I'm open to just going in the direction of wherever we go. But we could get into developing your own sound. We could get into transcriptions. We could get into practicing evoking emotions. We could also get into auditions and competitions and how this kind of covers in that ground. And there's a little bit of difference between those two things in my eyes as well. And also we'll have questions, and I'll definitely open it up, and hopefully we'll just have a diverse conversation with this. Also, musical experiences that have changed us, and I might as well just start with this one right now because it's almost top on my list. So what I mean by that is it could be a concert that we went to, or it could be an album, or it could be a solo from an album, or something where it's just changed us either as a human, or it's just changed our perspective on music. So that's something that I feel is incredibly important. And it's important to acknowledge these moments, and that you've had that connection with, even if it's from a listener's perspective or a performer's perspective, and use them to fuel you and help align your performance goals, and also redirect your practice towards those emotional high points. And that's what sometimes can get a little cloudy with some of this, because we might go to like an amazing concert where we walk away like, oh, that was unbelievable, and that has changed you in a certain way, but then you feel like, but I'm not there yet, so I have to be over here, kind of. I've still got to deal with scales, and I got to deal with learning this tune, and I got to just deal with range. And you kind of still keep in your road of doing technical stuff, but you don't actually end up reassessing and kind of pointing in that direction of something that just moved you, and how can I bring that into my practice? So with that being said, I'm gonna just start with one of my experiences that changed me, and that was actually hearing Joe Temperley play Single Petal of a Rose. First of all, the tune is beautiful, Duke Ellington tune. It's on Queen's Suite. I think they recorded it in like 1959. But Joe, I've had the pleasure of hearing Joe play it a couple of times, and I'm telling you right now, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and even the band was getting full too. So, being on stage and hearing someone play something like this, it changed me. Okay, so I'm actually going to share my audio right now. To give me a second, and I'm going to play parts of this track. So we're not going to hear the whole thing. We're just going to hear a little bit, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Okay. So one moment. So if you've got headphones on, just watch out. Some audio's coming your way. Okay, I'm just skipping ahead to the end right now. Okay, okay. Okay, so we didn't hear the whole thing, but just even from that, and that was a recording, that was Dan Nimmo on piano, that was actually a recording on one of his albums, but you can look that up. You can also find, you know, the original is beautiful just hearing Duke's version of it. So what's interesting about that for me was that it's not a technical piece of music. It pretty much, just taking a look at it, you could probably play it, sight read it, maybe a second time through you could actually pretty much play the whole thing. So if we can all play this, then how come one person can play it a certain way that can actually move like the whole house? And so that definitely like stuck with me, because I mean, just knowing Joe as well, just the way he was, I mean, he would get there like an hour before the gig and you'd hear all melodies that he was going to be playing on the gig, he'd be playing them, and that was just before there, you know, he was practicing them the whole day as well. And that could even be parts, it could be parts that weren't even melodies with he was alone, it could just be a part in the section that he'd be playing. So, you know, a lot of times that kind of gave me a perspective of, you know, sometimes I'm guilty of just maybe just learning a tune, feeling like I know it, but not really like digging deep inside for myself to try and get more out of it. And I don't mean that by adding a lot of notes. I mean that by just playing it with a certain way where I feel like I capture emotion, or I just keep playing it until I feel like I can get more out of it. And so that was something that really really changed me, and once again, there's like that acknowledgement of it and trying to bring it back into our practice. So when we're practicing, we can have that perspective. I'm actually practicing that side, not just the technical side. One way that we can, you know, I like to do this, and also just kind of bring this in with my students as well, is playing a tune a certain way and trying to evoke an emotion with that tune. So it could be something simple. Once again, we're not trying to add notes, we're not trying to just, you know, play anything but the melody, but maybe we play it in a certain way that brings joy, or we play it in a certain way that's sad or excitement. And, you know, how you can help yourself with that is maybe take a tune that already has that kind of feeling to it. So when you listen to it, you think, oh man, this tune always makes me feel happy. It's a happy tune. And then just try and stay in that emotion, and then maybe try and just deal with a different emotion with that tune. Or, you know, it's like a ballad or something that makes you feel a certain way, like stay with that, and then try and play it another way where you're bringing all these different emotions out. And that will help work on that other side that sometimes we feel like, well, you know, I'm not there, I got to just deal with all this, all the technical side, and then once I've finished all that language, then I'll figure out how to say it, or say it a certain way. And that's you know, it's not how it works. By hearing this, it's like that is the goal. Everything that we do technically, this is the reason we're doing it. This is the goal right here. So so this is definitely something that has changed me. Do we have? I know we have some great people in here. I'm looking right now. We have Jacob. How you doing, man? We have like a few other people. If anyone wants to share it, we have Brendan in here. If anyone wants to share like an experience, a similar thing for them that they feel like, change them in some way. Oh, we got Eric Miller in there as well. Nice, man, nice. Oh, we got a lot of great musicians in here. So feel free just to, you could put up your hand, and if you wanted to share something, feel free to.
Yeah, if you want to share or ask Elliot a question, you can either type it in the chat to me or to everyone, or you can you go ahead and use that raise hand function. It's in the participants tab at the bottom of your window. Press the raise hand button if you would like to say something.
Jacob.
Jacob.
Yeah, hey. Well, my name is Jacob. I'm a student of Elliot's at Juilliard. I'm really happy to be here, and I wanted to kind of share a series of events that kind of have changed how I view jazz and improvisation and just being an artist. I'm in my third year now at Juilliard, and moving to New York a couple of years ago was really hard, moving from high school to college and then St. Louis to New York. And, I spent my first few months in New York just always kind of paranoid of what are other people going to think about me when I play? Are they going to think, are they going to think I'm good? And there's such a culture in the jazz community of, is someone killing or not? How many times did somebody say, woo, in your solo at Smalls or something? And so my first kind of few months, up to even a year of being there, were kind of consumed by this feeling of not being deemed good by other people. And then, I started seeing this guy around the city, so many trombone players and musicians either know him or should know him, Frank Lacey. And seeing him around, he was always kind of around the city. I would see him at Dizzy's, like standing on chairs or like kind of wandering around. And I would go, what is he doing? And I thought it was so interesting to see somebody wandering around so freely with no regard for what other people thought of them. And so I finally got to know Frank, and I've been playing in his band for a while, and I realized that he is so unapologetically himself. And that's what makes him and his playing unique. If you've ever heard him play, he plays exactly the way that he acts. And I started to realize that, if I carry myself that way of not caring about what other people think about me or my playing, it opens up a whole new world of exploration in terms of my improvisation, in terms of my musicianship and my artistry. And so for the past, year and a half since I started working with him, I really started, when I get up to play, I no longer think, oh, is that person in the third row going to think this is killing? Or when I go over to Elliot's house in that room for our lessons, I don't think anymore like, oh God, what's Elliot going to think? I just play what I feel and what's really going to come out in my playing. And that's really it for me. I've just really put more of a focus on what I think should freely come out of me as opposed to what other people are going to think.
Absolutely. That's great, Jacob. That's great, man. And I've seen that transition with yourself as well, where, because sometimes we have that feeling where we think we should play a certain way, even if it's just a tune. It's like, I need to play a certain way over this tune so people know that I know the tune, and that can so get in the way of the music. It's like thinking that the bridge of Cherokee is coming up and now I have to stop my thoughts of whatever I was dealing with and now play in 2/5 in B major. It just breaks that musical thing. That's all the stuff that should be running in the background, all the stuff that we work on, just so you can hear it and be yourself and naturally just hear these melodies that just happen to go through this key center or whatever it is. And so thanks for that. Do we have anyone else that wants to share anything like that? I do see we have.
Yeah, we have Jimmy O'Connell.
Jimmy, what's up, man? Yeah, definitely.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Hey, what's up, everyone? So I've been here for 10, 11 years, and I went through that whole process about needing to play more and feeling like I couldn't play enough. And there was like a solid chunk of time where I actually spent checking out Elliot over here just to get chop stuff together. And then, and it definitely helped me, the speed and everything like that. And then a few years ago, 5 years ago, I started playing with Slide Hampton. He started having these big band rehearsals at his house, like in Jersey. and it was like me. I think I know Joe McDonough is on here. I think he did one of them with me, and my buddy Rob was on them, and we were all going out there and just hanging out with Slide and playing these big band arrangements he did. And it was funny because I spent so much time, focusing on being a technician, which I feel like is important to all of us, and it's something that we all strive for, especially with cats out there like you and Dees and Marshall, and like it feels like it's a big part. And then I heard Slide, and Slide was a technician his whole life, but he's in his 80s, like late 80s now, and he's not as technical as he once was. But I remember hearing him play. We were trading on something, and he was just playing, and even though he wasn't as strong on the horn as he used to be, he was saying way more than anyone else was saying, just as far as musically. And it kind of impacted me in the same way. I realized that, like, all the technique that he had, all the technique that I have learned and everyone has learned, is kind of just moving you towards the point where you can play exactly what you want, where you can speak your truth through the horn. And he was able to speak his truth through the horn with whatever, sort of proficiency he had left. And it was so impactful. And I just remember saying that thing, like, man, I spent a lot of time doing technical stuff and getting all that stuff together. And then at the end of the day, it wasn't really about that. Like, I can't play as much as Slide could play back in the day, but it doesn't matter because he's out here speaking his truths and being way more impactful than anyone else. And it's just because he has music in him. He's more musical. He lives the music and he loves the music. And that was one of those eye-opening moments for me where everything else kind of took a backseat. I was like, I need to work on, even playing more musically, being, better phrasing and trying to evoke some sort of emotion instead of just playing as much as I can all the time.
Absolutely. It's actually Slide's birthday today as well.
Yeah,
so
it was yesterday, right?
Was it yesterday? Yeah,
it was close. Yeah, very close.
Man, absolutely. I mean, I did one of those rehearsals back in the day with him, and just hearing his sound, and just it's something else. And it's actually, this part of this is definitely this thing that we're in right now. It's like I crave just to hear live music, and just although this is great that people are doing live streams and we're getting to hear people that we might not on our usual schedules, but just live music and hearing someone's sound in person, it's like you just cannot beat that. And I'm getting that crave just to go out and hear live music, and I'm fortunate to be able to play with great musicians, so I'm missing that too. But that, sometimes that stuff in person can just, it doesn't always get captured. Just how deep someone's sound is on a recording. And so yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. So I mean, also just just the trombone in general, it's like it's one of those kind of technical beasts that we can get caught up on that side, just trying to get the music that we're hearing to come out the way that we're hearing it. So we end up spending a lot of time on these technical things, trying to get a pure sound, trying to be able to get a full sound, and just all this kind of stuff, just articulation. I mean, it takes a lot of time to do that, and it can also, those kind of technical things can give back that instant fulfillment. It's like I couldn't do this exercise one day, and then the next day after playing it, I can do it. Yes, I'm getting better. It's like you kind of just, and that can help fuel you that way. So you kind of stay in that lane of just trying to get that instant, fulfillment come back at you. And on the emotional side of things, it doesn't work like that. It's not something that you might not even see for a minute. And even if you do change because you're practicing a lot, it might not come out in your playing, and you can't judge it on the next performance or on the next day or the next week. This is an investment into yourself that is like the long game. And the more you do that, just what we're talking about with just taking a melody and just trying to get more out of it, or just seeing different ways that you can approach it and have a certain feeling behind it, that is something. It's not just good for that melody. That's good just for you. So you are able to do that, and you feel like that is the goal of what you're trying to do, and the technical side is just it's not getting in the way um, of that music. But the goal is this side. So if we have, do we have any other?
Yeah, we have Cooper Hedinger.
Okay,
Oh,
Cooper.
sorry, 1 second. Go ahead, Cooper.
Hi, so I'm Cooper Hedinger. I'm a junior in high school in Ohio. So my big moment like that was the first year that I made All-State Jazz, which was last year, and going and being able to play and hear musicians that were significantly better than I was, people who could improvise and had better tone and sound than I did, and learning from them. Um, the the trombone guest that year, I believe, was Andy Martin, and getting to talk to him and pick his brain about things really made a lot. But the biggest thing is where I live in Ohio, it's not like New York or anywhere close to a city. It's not a place where there's a huge jazz scene. There's a very strong one, but it is not anywhere near a lot of other places. So when I got to play with this group and got to meet all these new people, seeing how other people play with each other, how other people connect and find each other to play. And I made a lot of really great friends and was able to start getting gigs through that. And the biggest thing that really set that all off was in between rehearsal blocks, we'd have lunch and we get an hour for lunch. And so we'd go and eat for 20 minutes and go back and to just be together and jam. Somebody would just call whatever tune they wanted. People would gather around whoever's phone had iReel on it so we could read the changes, and we'd go. And if somebody screwed up, you screwed up. Everybody laughed and was like, oh, well, keep going. And it really helped me learn to not be so self-conscious about what I'm playing and really play what I feel in my head is going to sound good, play things that maybe some people are going to like, maybe some people aren't, do things that are different, and listen to what other people are playing and build off them, especially when we're going and trading and there's, we're going every 4 or 8 bars, just trying to build on each other, that
Absolutely.
sense of camaraderie.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm actually from a pretty small town myself, like in the UK, Norwich. So I'm used to that coming from a scene, even though I did have a good scene, and it's pretty close to London. And I could get to London when I was really young, and meet some of those cats and sit next to them and play with them. But it's not always available where you're at. So I mean, that's why sometimes I always say New York's a great place just to go and just absorb everything. Just absorb. You can go there and just stay there for a couple of weeks or something, and you'll see probably like 100 different concerts, and then take that and go back to wherever you're at and just use that as the inspiration. So if you can try and find ways to or when people come to your area and they're playing quite close to you, make the effort to go and hear them, because that could be something where you walk away and it really does change you. Thanks for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thing, another topic that we can get into is transcribing, but I mean, I'm totally open to where people want to go with this as well. So, I mean, like I said, if people want to just ask a question or talk about something else, we can as well. But just sometimes, like with transcribing, what happens is that it's good and bad. If we just do this, I like to call it either shallow transcribing or like deeper transcribing. So if we just deal with the notes, or we take a phrase from someone, or we even do their whole solo, but we're just really trying to get the notes down and the rhythms down, and we're getting a couple of scoops here and there, and we're kind of trying to play it, but we're not really getting deeper into it. It's not going to bleed into your playing. It's not going to become a part of you, and so this often what I like to call is like just deeper, just keep going with this. Don't stop when the solo stops. What I like to do, especially with students, is like, okay, the solo's finished, let's continue soloing in the same style. Let's just try and continue keeping in that time. Or let's take a harmonic concept, and then let's work on that concept and play with that concept. Let's play with melodies that you're hearing around that concept. And so it doesn't become like one solo that you know, or one phrase that you know. You're able to kind of really kind of like, or even just like a vibrato, like Woody Shaw's vibrato, or Freddie Hubbard's vibrato, or that kind of stuff. Just really trying to emulate it. And as you're going through these with some of the masters and some of your idols, you will find what you like with this. Oh, so and so can do it like this, or he plays in the time with this kind of lope. But I kind of like maybe doing this, jumping on top of the beat, or I would like to pull back or play with the time, go forward and back with it. And you'll find that it's not trying to imitate that person. It's just trying, it's just not stopping with those notes and trying to get with the emotion once again, and the stuff that's behind this solo. And so we don't just have this one lick or one solo that we can play. We have we've got so much more from it, and this is something that I feel like it has helped me. But also I've seen students that maybe just normally would stop at one place kind of get more out of the solo, and it's become like a part of the way they're hearing music. What I like to kind of call it is like refining what I'm hearing, like refining what I'm hearing. So I mean, like, in other words, even if I was playing the same tune, if I had to play All the Things You Are tomorrow, a tune that I've heard and played like thousands of times, if I was practicing it right now, I'm not trying to play the same stuff over it that I'm hearing. I would want to hear more. I want to refine what I'm hearing and try and hear more with it. And same even with just approach, like when I'm transcribing, I'm just trying to get more, hear it differently, just add more to the personality. And so that's something that I definitely think that kind of under this topic of transcriptions and something that has helped me, and I've seen it also help my students. Now, do we have any questions or anything to do with anything we've just said right now, or do we want to get into another topic?
It seems like there's a question from an Annabella. Go ahead, Annabella. Oh, 1 second. I'm trying to unmute you. There you go. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Mason.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm from Denver School of the Arts. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm good, thanks.
My question was kind of related, but it's more about finding the right career, because there's so many ways that you could go in jazz. But I was wondering, like, how do you find or know like what kind of lifestyle you want to live, whether that's like freelance gigging or getting into a permanent group like Jazz at Lincoln Center, or how do you find that niche that you really find fulfillment in?
Okay, yeah, great question. Sometimes sometimes you don't necessarily know. You know what you like, but you're trying to prepare yourself to be complete and to be able to do a lot of different things. And you're kind of preparing yourself for that opportunity that you hope will someday come your way, and then you're prepared for it. So it's jazz. I didn't, move to New York. I was in New York for 10 years before I got a call for jazz at Lincoln Center. I didn't even think that I would get a call for jazz at Lincoln Center. I managed to play with Vince and a couple other guys outside the band, and the chair was open. But just I would say, sometimes I didn't even think when I was younger that I would like to be a teacher, but I enjoy that now. So even if you're at a stage where you think this isn't for me, it doesn't mean that you can't work on that stuff, especially when you're in school or take classes in like sound or mixing or engineering, or it's just something. So you might actually end up using that, or even as you take that class, you might realize that's what you want to do. So I think there's definitely these things within music that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, but to try and be complete and understand that it's a tough business. So this might be what I really love to do. I love to just perform and do gigs, but it's to live off that. It can be a challenging, even if you're in a full-time orchestra or band, or have a great gig, that still can be a challenge. So understanding that we might have to work on other aspects of our playing to try and be able to do a multitude of things rather than just the one thing that we love, and that and also bring that into your practice as well, so you feel like, okay, this is stuff that I like to practice, and this is stuff that I know I need to work on to try and be more complete. And that stuff, the way I normally set that up for my practice is like I end with I'm like a dog that you give a biscuit at the end. It's like I end with the nice stuff that I want to do. It's like, okay, I've got through all the stuff, like the maintenance, good, nice warm up, and then and now this is the stuff. Now I get into the stuff that I know I need to work on, so I'm concentrating on that. And at the end, then I get to the stuff that I like to do, and that kind of thing on my horn keeps me. So I'm not just doing stuff that I need to do and not having fun, and I'm not just having fun and not doing stuff that I need to do. So like one of the that balance for me kind of keeps me wanting to pick up the horn and not getting burnt out of it. Even if you just pick up the horn and just play stuff that you want to do all the time, you still can get burnt out because you might not be improving, or you might be staying, it's just you're just noodling around or doing stuff that you want to do. So trying to find that balance within the practice can help that side as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annabella.
We've got a couple other hands raised. Maybe.
Yeah, you want to go to those?
Sure.
To those guys? All right, we got a question from James.
Hi. I was wondering about the transcription, whether, say, you've learned solos from different people, and you're trying to kind of, how would you tie those all together to create your own sound? Okay.
Great question. I'll tell you what not to do is to like take what I like to call is like the punchlines of jokes. It's like the favorite phrase that you've got from this solo, and you're just dealing with the punchline of it. So it's like you haven't really dealt with why it made you feel this way, like how the solo built up to a certain point, what was going on with the rhythm section underneath, and all that kind of stuff. And so you're just dealing with one aspect, and you're taking that, and you might be doing it all in different keys or whatever it is to take in that one phrase, but now you just got this one thing that you're trying to implement all the time. Yeah. It's like you could be actually making beautiful music and really like listen to the rhythm section, interacting, but then you think, okay, you know, I got to play that Coltrane phrase because it's much better than whatever I could be doing, because it's, you know, it's my idol. So now I'm going to play that phrase right now, and everyone will go, wow, you played that Coltrane phrase, you know, that kind of thing. And you just break the concentration of music, and it becomes like you're just trying to put in all these different punchlines of jokes without the whole joke being there. So what I would say is, you know, do the opposite from that, which is what I like to do is take the concept. So let's say you have that same phrase that we just called a punchline. Okay, play it on the piano. Play it as a chord. Look what it is. Listen to what they're doing underneath, because it might not be what the real book says the chord was. Listen to that phrase as an actual, oh, it's just this chord. Simplify it. Try and understand it. It could be even like a triad in there. Oh, it's just a C triad, but it has, you know, a couple extra notes in it. That's all the phrase was. And it's over this sound. And now let's say it was over D, but it had C triad with A flat and whatever in it, like D in it. Okay, let me take that sound, put D in the bass. First, I'm going to play that phrase, and now I'm going to continue. I'm just going to use those notes and start hearing the sound for what it is and try and hear melodies around that sound. And now you've taken the concept of the solo or that phrase that you liked, and you've made it your own. And so you're hearing it. You're not trying to put in a phrase here and there. You're just hearing that natural sound over it. And that, you know, I'm going through it quickly, but I mean, if you do that, that will start to become something that it will be more of a natural kind of transition between your pre-composed stuff, like that you might already have, and maybe just stuff that you're naturally hearing. It's not like you're just trying to put in phrases here and there where you can kind of hear when someone's doing that. It will become just something that you're hearing, and it naturally just kind of works its way into your thought process or the solo.
Cool. Thanks very much.
All right, you got it, James.
Thanks, James.
We have a few other people.
Yeah, you want to keep on going down the line?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go to John Normandin.
Hey.
John.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Elliot, how you doing? Thanks
doing,
for taking my question, and really love your playing and everything. What strategies do you use for integrating new harmonic sounds into your playing? You know, things that maybe you aren't really comfortable with, and as you learn some of these new harmonic colors, what are some strategies you take to integrate those sounds into your playing and to be able to find melodies and be creative within something that you're otherwise uncomfortable with?
Nice question. Well, it's pretty similar to what I was just saying with the transcription, but what I like to do is you have to hear it. I mean, I don't like to think about any of this stuff. It just has to be something that I hear, but you can help yourself to hear that by doing certain things like playing a sound over a sound, if that's what it was. If sometimes there could be a chord that you have to solo over where you're not really hearing what the sound of the chord is, and so you'll just take that chord, play it, you know, you can run up and down the scale so you hear it, or run up and down an arpeggio, and then you can try to hear these different melodies or melodies that you already naturally hear, but you're just tweaking them to go over that sound. And sometimes, you know, a lot of like my compositions come from piano. I think piano is a great instrument, or having access to a chordal instrument where you're able to visualize these and kind of play them and hear these different sounds for what they are. And then it's just a matter of just in your practice, not just playing the right hand of the sound. Make sure you can either put I Will Be or one of those things on that's playing a bass around that sound, or a drone, or just holding the piano on the bass note, and then improvising around that sound on top of it, so you can really hear how that sound relates to the bass. I think also is, you know, once you've got it in like that static modal kind of environment of just dealing with the sound, then it becomes, you'll start to hear it as it connects to other sounds. So you actually hear it more of just a road that takes you down to this sound. And that's when it starts to become fun, because you're like playing over changes and you're not necessarily thinking about it up and down of like, we're in this change now. It becomes more like, oh, I'm going to get to over here, and this kind of sound almost takes me down this road to there. So it's like you're not waiting for the change to happen and then just playing over the chord. It's like you're using these different things that you can hear that kind of take you down that road to get to that sound. So I hope that helped.
Thanks, John. All right, let's move on to Adrian Braga.
Hi, my name is Adrian. I'm a junior at Dillard Center for the Arts. What tips do you have on developing a theme throughout a solo without becoming too repetitive or monotonous?
Great question. So this is something that we have to practice as well. That's, you know, sometimes we just think, oh, I'm just going to develop a theme. I'm just going to get out there and everything's going to come together. You know, it's like, good luck. You know, you can practice this, whether you think of it as motif development or, you know, just taking a part of the melody or a part of the rhythm and then developing that. That can be a way of doing it. But I think the natural way is using melodies that you're hearing. Don't try and think I'm gonna already start my solo with this phrase and then I'm gonna develop it. You're setting yourself up for disaster if you do that. Okay. So what I would say is just try and be more in the moment with it. That's one thing. Then you can react to a rim shot. You can react to the end of the solo. You know, musicians might completely change it into a different feeling. So if you've already got this preconceived that this is what I'm going to start with, it's definitely going to not work out. But in the practice thing, you know, maybe take take a phrase that you naturally hear, something pretty simple, and then take a part of that phrase. It doesn't have to be this whole thing. Take something of it, whether it's the harmonic side of it or the rhythmic side of it, and kind of play off that, and then take a part of that and play off that, and continue it. So it's not necessarily playing one phrase and then keep playing that same phrase. It's more about taking parts of those phrases and then just letting that kind of naturally evolve into where it goes. And I think, you know, being open and thinking about that, it creates more of a natural progression of your solo rather than, like I said, even if you're thinking I'm going to start with this or I'm going to play this, that can it can definitely shut out everyone around you. You're already not listening because you think you're going to play a certain way or a certain thing, and so to come back from that once you've started that is hard. Mm-hmm. So, but you can always get there. You can always get there where it becomes a little bit selfish. Like, now I've built it up to here and I'm doing my thing. All right, you can get there, but you can't really come back from it if you start. So try, you know, when you're playing with you know, friends and stuff, just try, or even practicing, try starting really open, playing a simple phrase, leaving space, developing it, parts of it, and letting that get into maybe, you know, what you would normally maybe start with. You know, look at it as like a pre-solo of starting with that, and just see where it takes you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Adrian.
Thanks, Adrian. All right, let's go to Ryan Polikoff. Go ahead, Ryan.
Hello. I have a
Ryan.
question. Some of the stuff you were saying before was getting me thinking about like balance between technique and musicianship. So, I mean, you're saying the trombone, like technical beast, and you can get wrapped up in it. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering what you think about and how you go about trying to efficiently get out your most musical ideas so that they're translating. So, you know, when people hear you, you know they're not hearing a trombone, they're hearing Elliot Mason.
Yeah, that's a great question. That to me, when someone says that to me, that's like the biggest compliment, especially if they're calling you for a gig. It's like, well, I didn't really hear trombone on this, but I heard you, and that's like, oh wow, okay, great. And then they're maybe writing for trombone, but they're not even thinking about it. They just hear a specific sound on it. So that would be definitely my goal. Like how can I how do I think about getting that out when playing? I'm trying not to think really. I mean, I'm trying to be just close to myself and just as possible, and not think as much as possible. Just one thing, you cut out in one part of that question, so can you just say part of the question again? I'm sorry.
Sure. Well, just from what you were saying, I guess I'm wondering, so I mean, there's no way you could just like go to the gig blank head and just nail everything. You've got to put hours and hours and hours in the practice room. So what do you think about, what do you spend time on in the practice room to make sure that when you get the gig, you can just hear your ideas, you can react to things, and the key word for me is efficiently get out your ideas so people say what I said before, like, he's Elliot Mason, he's not just a trombone player. Okay,
so look, there obviously there are technical things that we all play, that we all practice, and there's what I like to do is to try and get exercises and the technical stuff that is coinciding with, like, I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it because this helps me to the way that I play, rather than trying to just do a technical exercise for the sake of doing it. Maybe I can do it really well, but it hasn't affected actually the way that I play. Like I tongue I tongue slightly differently when I do this, or I play like louder when I'm playing this, and this is kind of dealing with a different aspect of my playing. So I mean, there's definitely, when you're practicing, you want to make sure you're working on the way that you would play in that aspect, but also I mean, also just we're talking about that emotional thing as being the priority here, but there obviously is a lot of other stuff that we're dealing with in the practice. I mean, there is a lot of technical stuff. There is, I mean, I make sure if I'm playing, sometimes I just like to literally turn out the lights and just play melodies that I'm hearing. And if for some reason something isn't translating, it's not coming out the way that I'm hearing them, then I will start, okay, let me now deal with a technical exercise or something that I feel that will help that. Or maybe it isn't even a technical exercise. It could even be just the translation from hearing it and playing it. And I need to just keep playing in that key, or keep playing in that register, or something, so it becomes a little bit more fluid, and from the thought process to hearing it and actually getting it out of my horn, that kind of thing is more fluid. So I think it really is different for everyone, depending on, you have to understand what your fortes are, what is working for you, and what you feel like you have to spend more time doing. But for me personally, it's like these exercises, technical stuff. I mean, like I'll be doing single tongue and making sure that I'm, playing everything evenly, but I don't want to sound like that. It's like, now I actually, it's like hearing someone play Donna Lee. It's like, okay, we that's great that you're tonguing like that and everything's even, but that's not what this is about. Like, so making sure that you can use that, like use your powers for good, as far as all the stuff that you've worked on help you to hear it and play it in a certain way that is once again musical and has that emotion behind it, and make it, it's not about playing it like Finale played it. It's really about the way that you play it, and kind of finding that when you're practicing, it's like just digging deeper. This is a good time because we're all like locked in our own houses, so it's like to really just spend some time just just playing long notes or playing stuff, and just hearing melodies. It doesn't have to be on a tune whatsoever, just playing melodies and just seeing as you're playing them, like what is working and what isn't working, and how can I now maybe create an exercise that will help this area that I feel like for me is not kind of coming together. And then, you know, just in the on the gig, for me, it just has to be natural. Like like you said, that clear, going there with a clear mind. It's like, you know, the tune. It's like, you know, the changes, but I'm not trying to put them in the front of my mind. If I start thinking about the changes too much, I play in a certain way and I don't really like it. If I have them at the back where I know what they are, but they're just kind of almost helping, guiding me towards some of the melodies that I'm hearing, then that becomes a lot easier for me, and it becomes a lot more natural, and I feel like I'm more myself rather than trying to play up and down the changes. So it's a long answer, but I hope that helped in some way, man.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, we got a good handful of questions here, so we're going to try to get to everybody. So let's keep going.
Great. And also, look, we've got some great musicians and trombone players in here. So musicians and trombone players. So we could, you know, if someone else wants to answer or chime in as I'm talking, please feel free. You know. So all right.
Let's go to Reeve. Reeve's iPhone. Go ahead, Reeve.
Hello, how you doing today?
How you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, just to let you know, I'm actually a phonium player and bass trombone player, and I started bass trombone 2 years ago, and I made the All-State Jazz Band. I was just wondering how, when you're feeling for your improvisation, how do you feel when you in your improv? How do you feel?
How do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
You mean just in general, like?
Yeah, like in general, like how, like if it's any type of like jazz composition that you do, how do you feel?
How do I feel? What exactly do you mean? Like, just elaborate a little bit for me.
Like if you think of like, think fast jazz, like or like or something like that. Like, what it feels like. How do you feel like in your jazz, like in yourself? What does it mean to you to show people how creative, like type of creation do you like to have?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, first of all, I think I understand what the way I'm taking your question is like, depending on the style of the music and like exactly like for me it's like a groove. You know, like each different style is like a groove. So, you know, swing is a groove. Like, so to play in that time a certain way can create that feeling, and how you're hearing it that time can help you to hear it and feel a certain way within it. So, you know, so that's why it's really important when we're doing like these transcriptions or whatever, just to not just take those notes down, but try and see how that lope and in that just the feeling of the time, and try and capture that, so you can understand how certain people, like the masters, are kind of approaching this. And then, you know, for myself, it's like sometimes I might even hear stuff that I don't like. You know, it's like we could be in a certain time, but I'm hearing another time over it. And you know, I'll practice playing in the time and keeping myself like in this time. This is where I'm just going to play eighth notes within this time, and just you know, really try and dig into the time. But then I maybe let myself, okay, let me just kind of navigate through it with triplets or floating on the time, or maybe I'll try and mix both in, or maybe I'll find a time that's in between the triplets and the eighth notes as I'm kind of getting there. You know, so I like to not feel like I only have to play in the time, but it sure does feel good when you do that. So I mean, you know, it's like, I just, once again, you know, even if it's an A basol, you know, even if it's, I wouldn't say I will be, that's going to be rough to get in the time, but even if it's, you know, just try and that could be your main thing that you're thinking about when you're practicing. I'm just going to think about time. Not even going to think about notes. Not going to think about, you know, the changes or even the tune. I'm just going to try and get in that time as much as possible, you know, and that will help you for it to become more natural once again. So when you're on stage and when you're playing, you're not necessarily thinking about getting in the time. It's just something that has become a part of you.
All right, thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Reeve. All right, let's go. I see you, Jimmy, but we're going to try to get someone who hasn't asked yet. So let's go to William Nannery. Go ahead, William.
Hey, how are you doing today?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. So just a little background. I am a student of Eric Miller's, and that's why I heard about this. So I wanted to ask, so personally, if I'm trying to compose my own music, I am very self-conscious about it. And I was wondering, when you're composing your own music, one, have you experienced that in the past before, like being self-conscious about your own compositions? And just, I'd like to just hear a little bit about your process of composing.
Sure. All right, great. I saw Eric.
Oh, you might have lost Elliot for a moment. Elliot, can you hear us? All right, well,
Yep,
oh, there you go.
There we
You're
go.
back. You're back.
We're back. I just answered that question in full right then. No, I'll get back to it. So, you know, I think it's you know, composing, it's the same thing. It's just, we all have this kind of little insecure thing going on. And it can get in the way of the music, whether it's through composition or whether it's soloing or whatever it is. Just, you know, how we look on stage, just something, you know, you've got to try and let that go, because I think the more free you are, it's going to come out in the music. And you could be actually suppressing a part of you that is truly unique, that could be the one part of you that really makes you you. So you know, as don't feel like, you know, what would someone else think about this composition? You're already now going to take different decisions and go down different paths when thinking about where this tune could go, that you would if you were just free to do whatever you're hearing. So, you know, try and just let it go where it goes. I mean, I've composed some stuff where I was trying to write something for something. You know, it's like if I'm trying to write a tune for Mason Brothers Quintet, like one of the band with my brother, sometimes I'll finish the tune and I'll feel like that's not really the right tune for that. That might be something good for something else. But, you know, if I try and force it in that direction, sometimes it doesn't end up, it sounds like that. It sounds like I'm trying to do it. And I could have let it go where it really wanted to go. And you know, they might use it for something else. It might not be appropriate for what I was trying to compose it for, but I'll use it for something else because it's kind of created its own thing. So definitely I would say try and keep open and not shut those doors down of creativity. Also for me, it's like I mean I love composing. I sometimes I feel like I can even enjoy it more than playing the tune. But once again, I just, you know, I think, you know, just letting things naturally go where they go is something for me where has been, I feel like it ends up having a composition that I'm more proud of, rather than me writing something for something and I'm trying to keep it in this bubble instead of just letting it go where it needs to go. All right, thanks, William.
Thank you.
Thanks, William. All right, we have time for a couple more questions, but before we get to those, I just want to take a moment to ask that you guys please make sure to join us again. We'll be hosting free live events throughout the coming weeks, every single day, including more masterclasses and conversations with members of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. We got question and answer sessions with Wynton. We have live performances and more content coming your way. Our next JLCO masterclass is going to be with sax master Walter Blanding. Walter will be teaching viewers about how to improve your technique on the tenor saxophone, including warm-up techniques, scale patterns, improvisation games, to enhance your skills and inspire your creativity. That will be live on Friday, April 24th, the same time, right here on Zoom. and also on Facebook Live. For a full list of upcoming events and archived concerts, please check out Jazz at Lincoln Center's online hub at jazz.org. Last thing I'll say is thanks again to everyone for being a part of this community. If it's within your means, please consider making a donation. We are a nonprofit organization. Jazz Lincoln Center is committed to entertaining, enriching, and expanding a global community for jazz. We're so thankful for contributions of any amount, and to our supporters and donors, we cannot thank you enough. So let's go to Mr. Robbie Cruz. Go ahead, Robbie.
All right. Hey, Ellie, how's it going?
How you doing, man?
Good, good. So I just wanted to kind of ask, and you might have already gone over it, but I know that as brass musicians, we have to have a certain level of, certain virtuosic level on our instrument to kind of play this music. But it's kind of hard to balance that with the actual music. I know we are practicing to play music at the end of the day, but just wanted to get an idea of how do you balance your practice routine now with the fundamental aspect compared to the music, and if it differs from when you were at your main development stage.
Absolutely, yeah, great question. It does differ because I feel like I don't have as much time as I did when I was younger. Like I got a family, I got a little one right now. Even in these times, it can still be challenging. But there were times when I was younger where I would be practicing 6-7 hours a day. I would call it practicing, but really I would just be playing my horn. And there would be definitely there's a good side to that. But at the same time, I've had times where I'm just practicing for an hour and a half, and really focusing on one thing, and it's actually changed me. It's changed the way I play. So, first of all, make use of your time. Make sure that you're really getting to something, even if that means writing down a schedule and say, I'm going to do, 15 minutes on this, 10 minutes on that, and trying to kind of stick to it. But also, what we mentioned earlier of making sure you have time to have fun and actually enjoy playing your horn, whatever that is for you, whether it's learning a tune or playing a tune that you like or whatever that is, make sure that's in there too. But for me right now, it's I go through kind of like a warm up into maintenance, where that is my category where I feel like if I don't do that every day, I'm going to get worse. I don't want to go there. So it's I'm doing this maintenance. I'm trying to still get better at it, but also I'm trying to just maintain technically the stuff that I have, and then maybe lean towards, for me, my goals have shifted as far as I want to try and get more emotion, try and, that stuff that I will actually bring into my practice as well. So there's definitely a technical maintenance, and I would include trying to push more with that. But at the same time, I kind of feel like I've figured out how long and what I need to do in that category to kind of at least stay the same or get better. And then I can also work on these other things that I feel like that I really want to work on, and that I feel like will bring even more to my playing. So I mean, just try and keep it a diverse practice. I mean, some people, however that works for you, this is what works for me. It might not work for you, but this is what works for me. So what you could, some people do it where they do one day full on this for hours and another day full on that. For me, just touching on something, even just tonguing, making sure I do something every day really keeps it on a level that is how I'm hearing music. If I start to stop, then I can actually hear it wasn't fluid. I would hear this and it would be fluid, but now it isn't. So I maybe need to get back to start working on this to help the music come out the way that I'm hearing.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you, Robbie. All right. Let's go to Khalid. Khalid, are you there?
Hi, how are you doing?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I wanted to ask a question that went back towards the experimenting with different harmonic sounds, but also integrating that in technique. So how would I take a sound, and what are some ways that templates that you like to use for moving them around the horn. So if I want to take like a chord scale, like Lydian augmented, or even if I wanted to take like a progression of like, I don't know, like a dominant chain or something, how are there like any particular ways you would work that on the horn, like pattern wise?
Okay, so already I'm going to try and not do that. So it sounds strange, but if I practice something in a pattern, even if it's a sound, okay, like we're talking about earlier, I'm not trying to think this is a Lydian sound. If I think that, I've already boxed myself into a sound. So yes, I know it's a Lydian when I'm playing, but if I can bring that into the way I'm hearing it, and I just hear it as a certain feeling, or it could be just simplifying it in like D triad over C or whatever it is, that to me has made it a lot easier for me to hear it and get in and out of that sound. If I start thinking, Lydian, or I'm just playing a Dorian sound right now, where do you go from there? Like when you're playing that, where do you go from there? It's like, then you just go into another sound. It becomes, for me, it becomes very much just running up and down the sound and not necessarily hearing melodies around that sound that transition and that connect to other sounds. So first of all, with your practice, understand what it is, the sound that you're playing, okay? It's called this sound, but try not to think of it like that, especially when you're playing. But even when you're practicing, try and, okay, it's just this is all it is. Hear the sound for what it is. Play a bass note, play melodies over that sound. That's so important for you to just naturally hear it. So you're not thinking, because if you start thinking about that sound, for me, all these, like all the titles of all these kind of, scales and stuff, it's just a label so you can identify it and hear it. But try not to think of it like that, because yours kind of, like I said, you'll get boxed into it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, man. All right, we have to wrap up. There's another class starting right after this. But Elliot, I just wanted to leave you a couple minutes in case there were any final thoughts you wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know, I'm sorry we didn't get to like people in here. We got some great musicians in here right now, and I mean, please, like if you're in the Zoom, just check out like everyone's name in there. I mean, it's just like unbelievable players we got in here. So thank you for coming and checking this out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with everyone that's in here and on the live stream, hopefully soon. So this is, you can always reach out to me personally if you have any questions that we didn't get through. I'll try and get to them in the next few days. I appreciate everyone coming in here and spending time with me. I hope you got something out of it, and it's great to see you all, and stay safe.
That's right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Elliot. Please keep up with us on social media as well. Just search for Jazz Lincoln Center on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, jazz.org. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Elliot.
All right.
I'm going to leave the chat open for another couple minutes in case people want to exchange information or websites or emails. Go forth. Take care, everyone.